Hello and welcome to Is This England, a show where we talk about old and new England games and ask just how England was this.
Euro 2024 is underway, and the Three Lions picked up 3 points with a controversial display against Serbia. But are there more negatives than positives at this early stage?
You may be a stranger, that's what time can do. Baby, you mean everything to me. Darling, there's no danger.
Welcome to the show, listeners. Nick, it's good to have you back on Brexitized soil because I know you've been away.
It feels good to be in a country which has taken back control.
Yes, we are in Euro 2024 mode. That means the pods will get more frequent for the duration of the tournament. Somehow, some way, we'll make something work anyway. And there's lots to talk about. But before we start properly, are you up for a bit of tempting fate way too much to the point where I think this breaks the matrix?
Oh, I'm interested in what this is going to be. Go on.
Episode 60, we're on now, meaning if we were to do a pod a game in the build up to the final, episode 66 would coincide with the Euros final.
And Elvis is going to be number one, yes?
Yes, yes, big
That's
boy.
that's the one that always sticks in my mind. I think it was the first one I ever remember just like hearing about and being like, it's going to happen.
Oh, that was 2010, wasn't it? Was that we drew
Um,
our first game? Oh no, there was something about that. Like,
it
oh,
was
we drew our
two.
first game in
I know
20.
in 2002 was when Little Less Conversation was at number one. And then
Yeah.
again, that was also drew the opening game for some reason. That was good. Like, and it was all just going to happen all of a sudden. Someone, I don't know, with the last name E was also in the squad. I don't know.
That's it, man. That is it. Well, yeah, let's look forward to episode 66. But today we're on episode 60. It's the first of Euro 2024 proper. What have you been able to catch? Have you been enjoying the tournament so far?
Yeah. Apart from the last day or so, I've watched some of every game, I feel.
That's a good
I think
track
the one
record.
that I probably missed most of while I was out in Germany was the Italy-Albania game. So I missed Albania's goal because we hadn't got to the pub yet.
That was
And
what,
then
20 seconds or something, wasn't it?
yeah, we came in pretty much just as they'd already scored and everyone was still going mad. And then half time hit me and my friend, and we both were like, we're fucking knackered. We're going
Yeah.
home. And we just went back to the hotel and missed the second half. Didn't miss anything. Thankfully,
No.
we'd seen we'd seen two of the goals out of the three. So
Yeah. That's a much better hit rate than me, to be fair. I've missed so much more than I thought I would of this tournament. So Friday I did watch the Germany Scotland game. Loved that. Loved that. I was saying I'm not like too keen on like piling in on the Scots, but
yeah.
if they were going to lose, I'd rather they got smashed by Germany because it's funny. But if they were like on track to 80 minutes in and they're pushing and it's 0-0, I would have been going, come on, Scotland, sort of thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, and then I didn't see another game, I think, until the England game. Um,
Wow.
I know, crazy and annoying, but you know, family. That's exactly how you should describe family anyway. And I did see the France game last night, which I thought was really good. To be honest,
Yeah, yeah.
I know, it's not the biggest score, but it was just a lot of crazy stuff kind of going on in that game. I mean, we can talk a little bit about the big hitters and how the opening stages have unfolded, maybe starting with France because Kylian Mbappe had his nose broken,
Yeah.
which was just mad. And I wonder, everyone seems to be saying that's one game out, which is fine. I wonder, like, is that normal? People seem confident when they say one game out for a broken nose.
Yeah, I don't know if that's like the norm. I guess it's just because it's so quickly. Like when that happens, it has just now been the case of like, all right, you've got a game in about 4 days. You're
Yeah,
kind of buggered unless you're gonna do something. And yeah, I think it's he'll be back for maybe the third game, which they probably won't need him at this
I was going to
point,
say they
but it
probably won't
makes
need
it
him. Yeah,
interesting in terms of because is the next game they've got is
Netherlands.
against, is it Netherlands?
Yeah,
So that's a tasty one for him to miss, really, in terms of if that's a draw,
yeah.
then or even the Netherlands win, that could change really where they end up in the group, which is a massive thing, really.
Definitely. Other than that, in the France game, I thought Austria were really good. To be fair, looked
Mm.
very like fit, and just had a lot of energy. But speaking of which, N'Golo Kante just
Rolling
stepping
back the
up,
years.
rolling those years back so hard. And yeah, France won 1-0. Other big hitters we mentioned: Italy, reigning champs, who got off to a good start. Really,
Your
well,
dark horse.
yeah, a terrible start for the first minute of the game, but by the time all was said and done, they look quite an entertaining uh, prospect rather than the Italy we've come to know through cliche over the years.
Yeah. I,
Anything to
I,
add on that, or were you too knackered?
I was quite knackered. Even as we were watching it, my memories of it are just let's just get through this. Not long to go now. So
Too
I'm not
knackered to
really
be
not enjoying
entertained.
it, more just like sitting through it because I thought
Yeah.
we had to do that. Like, and then we just went, nah, not doing this anymore.
And obviously, I'm just catching up on highlights, but the Spain result against Croatia, a 3-0, is the biggest wow factor for me. I don't know whether that's down to Croatia being poor or Spain being good. Playing Alvaro Morata up front, which is just class. Just international football we're starting to see is just a home for some strange players to just dominate.
I read something the other day that Alvaro Morata is the third top scorer ever at the Euros. Like, what? This
Yeah,
guy, like, is just a statement of like just sticking at it. Like, he's probably only got like one World Cup goal, but then you
yeah,
look at someone like Kylian Mbappe, and everyone's making a big deal of like, he's never scored a Euros goal. And it's like, yeah, he's only played one tournament before this.
yeah.
That's why. It's like, well, you can't really compare them like that.
No,
But yeah, it's a quite mad one. I thought Spain looked good. I didn't think Croatia looked awful. It feels like they were just kind of hit at the right time, really. And I remember looking at that team just as they came out, and I was like, really? Like that's
yeah.
what Spain are dishing up these days. But fair play, they've started really well.
They've got that very young winger, haven't they, who seems to be ready to make an impact on the tournament. And obviously, another big hitter to talk about is Germany, who I thought looked brilliant. Obviously, it's against Scotland. That's a little caveat, but they're not, all banter aside, they're probably not one of the worst teams in the tournament.
Mm.
Well, they probably are one of the worst teams in the tournament, but that's a bar, it's a bar that they've had to meet. My takeaway from that was Germany have got a proper like manager who would get a job at a big club right
Yeah.
like right now, and he's young, and they looked well drilled and their pressing was insane. Like Scotland literally couldn't get out. And I thought, is that going to be the difference, that they've got a manager who's not? It's a strange one that he's there. I'm presuming he's there because something went wrong and he managed Bayern Munich. And it
Yeah.
I don't
That's
even know if that's fact, but I'm sure it is.
that's pretty much it. He was at Leipzig, and I think he was somewhere previous as well and had done well. And he was just it was seemed for like a year out he was going to Bayern, and it's just that thing of like they hadn't done amazing. They were obviously still winning the league, and then they just got itchy feet. It felt like, and they were like, "Yep, get Tuchel in, we'll all be fine." And obviously, it hasn't gone that way. And I think he kind of just saw it as like, I haven't got anything on, might as well manage Germany because it was a bit of a free hit. He gets to do it
Yeah.
at home for a tournament. And I'm sure that when he goes, because I think he's signed it on till after the tournament now. So I think
Okay.
that when he actually leaves, whenever that is, he'll get another crack at it at some point if he's still like the manager that people think he is. Like he's a really interesting manager with how his teams play, but I just can't get over the fact he's maybe a bit up himself with the way he dresses. And I know you shouldn't
Yeah.
probably
Yeah.
think about that, but it's like you really shouldn't have to be like forcing this kind of personality when your teams are as good as his have been.
Yeah. Yeah. But I don't think Germany are going to lose any points for that.
Yeah. Well, my style points anyway. But no, they were really interesting. Obviously, but and Musiala kind of took the headlines. Musiala,
Oh,
a player that I've just missed for a
he's
long
so
time.
good.
Like I just don't watch enough Bayern Munich or Germany in general. And I saw how kind of I think everyone remembers weirdly rather than his goal. It was kind of the break out of his own box where he just absolutely killed a Scotland defender.
It's mad. It
Um,
kind of reminds me of Messi, like in
he's
the with
got
the
that about
dribbling
him, hasn't he?
ability.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Yeah, I thought they were really good, and they were my pick. And I've also got them in a sweepstake. So
Nice.
could be coming together, the spirits, but also the spirits are telling me that podcast 66 would be the final. So
Beating
who knows?
Germany as well.
So maybe
Yeah.
like the second tier, we can look back at Netherlands with Big Vout, Ruud van
Yeah.
Nistelrooy, stepping up as he does. And there's a lot of discourse online about the return of the big man up top. People, jokingly just
Yes.
going, "I'm sick of tippy tappy systems and possession football. Get the big lad on," and it seems to be catching on in the Euros.
Absolutely, yeah. I loved seeing Vegos come on, and you just felt there's just something about him. There just really is. Like he's always great value for the Netherlands as well. I think he did quite all right in qualifying. Obviously, at the last tournament, he came on and made a massive impact in the Argentina game, and made Messi look like a bitch, which is obviously what he is. And we discussed this before regarding that World Cup documentary that Messi just thought he'd pick on Veghorst, and
Yeah,
it's just like it was like such like little mob boss on like
yeah.
the big goon of another boss, like picking on him. It was just really, really odd. But yeah, great to see him as well. Obviously, your man, was it Adam for Hungary?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. He's another one. Yeah.
He's
Martin
already
Adam, I
been memed
think.
to death, bless him.
Absolutely. I'm glad I was on that bandwagon just before. But yeah, Netherlands picked up the win. Belgium didn't. Belgium lost to Slovakia, one of the
Yes.
Slavs anyway.
Yeah.
And yeah, memeage falls on Lukaku for this one. I thought De Bruyne looked a little bit off it as well. Not a great start for Belgium, and not much
Yeah.
to add. I mean, I did see somebody say, "Is this the biggest shock in the Euros ever?" I can't think of what I would choose to replace it, but it's probably not, right? I
I
mean,
think it was just the fact that
Greece won it.
everyone just yeah, well, yeah, exactly. You're forgetting the big Greece factor. I think as well, just the fact that everyone just expected Belgium to walk through the group, whether
Yeah,
they'd win it or not. I don't think many people had them down to do really well, but it was an opening game, smaller team they're facing. Lukaku's going to fill his boots, and he did in a different way, that we're
filled
that
them
we're
with
just used
cement.
to. And I find it really difficult, like when I think about Lukaku in terms of as soon as he doesn't do well, he already like the quite untasteful memes and videos come out, and it's always of black players or black people like not having a good time. And I think there's
Yeah,
something quite troubling about that a little bit.
I
But
know it. Yeah,
I will also say that he is not great.
he's
Like,
not
and it
great.
seems like it's got to be this perfect situation for him to really do well, and people are so quick to like judge him like poorly, and then also quickly to come to his defense of like, well, he's
Yeah,
not fit, he hasn't done this, hasn't done that, and I'm like, there's probably a lot of truth in the middle where just on that biggest level, that next level, he is just not there.
I agree completely. I think he does get perhaps harshly taken the Mickey out of. Um, and that might not happen if he looked different or what
Yeah.
have you. But also, I don't like the narrative that he's one of the best strikers going, because we're not going in we're not in a generation of strikers traditionally, which is fair
Mm.
enough. So he might actually be, but at the same time, wingers are kind of the new strikers, and I would much rather have so many other players in a team instead of him. I just don't. I don't. I'm gonna sound bad here, but I don't see that much of a difference between him and Weghorst. Like, I know he's got this record of scoring goals and stuff like that, but I'm just like, if he was that good, I don't think he would have moved around so many teams.
I think it's kind of like failed at lots of teams. Like obviously he was good in his first season at Man United, second season not as good, and he came back from the World Cup with a lot more weight on him. Well, he will say that was muscle. A lot of the time when you saw him, it didn't look like that, and he kind of fluctuates. Like I just don't. It's a bit like Wayne Rooney. Do you remember Wayne Rooney would be like as soon as he put a t-shirt on, like the shirt, he would
Yeah.
look like a big lad. I think Luke
Yeah.
Shaw's quite similar, but then
But
also like as
nobody
soon
would
as like
have nobody would have believed Rooney if he said this is muscle.
yeah, exactly. But as soon as you see Lukaku without a top on, he is like in amazing shape.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
just like that middle ground, like it's so difficult. And like you say, he wouldn't be the player, he wouldn't be dotted around Europe and Chelsea looking to sell him for like 30 million or something like that.
Yeah.
And Roma now even going, he's been fine. He's been all right. Don't know what we're going to do with him. Like,
Maybe maybe Weghorst was an unfair comparison. Maybe Murata. Is
Yeah,
ju-
well,
you know what I
they
mean?
were like really close, weren't they? Because it was seen that Man United and Chelsea, one of them would be buying one of those players,
Yeah.
and they were seen as like, well, whoever gets this one's really going to get the good deal. And it turns out none of them have got the good deal.
The good deal was Mbappe somewhere
Yeah, like
knocking about.
sneaking in.
Big win for Romania as well. I think as we are podding, there's a game going on between Turkey, who are 2-1 up on 98 minutes against Georgia. And we get to see a bit of Cristiano tonight, which I'm really excited for. I wouldn't be
Mm.
surprised. I mean, this is a silly thing to say, quite obvious, and also probably going to be proven wrong, but could be the last we see of him. I'm never going to watch a Saudi game unless it's like this is Ronaldo, like Ric Flair's last match, like this is Ronaldo's last game. I'm never going to tune in to watch. So if he, for one reason or another, anything could happen. He doesn't make the next World Cup, or Portugal don't make the next World Cup. Is he going to make the Euros after that? So this tournament could be the end of Cristiano Ronaldo in Europe size anyway.
We've just been saying that for so long, though. I've just
Yeah,
stopped, like, even like same with Modric. Like it's taken. I know it's not the same, but it's taken Tony Cruz literally retiring from all forms of the game for me to just not expect him to turn up at tournaments and club football anymore. And I
yeah,
just don't. I've just stopped thinking about it unless like Ronaldo were to come out and say this is the last one. I'm just
yeah.
like, yeah, just carry on. Let's not worry about it. And you never know. Maybe he'll go out with as much dignity as Ric Flair did. Like having a heart attack
bleeding,
and collapsing during his last match.
bleeding, having a heart attack, and wearing purple pants while the Undertaker looks on tutting. That would be great. I'd love that. Yeah. So let's move closer towards talking about England anyway, because I'd like to hear. I don't know if it's on purpose, but we've not really spoken that much about your great adventure over to Germany. So just for people who may not have listened before, can you recall what? Can you recall? I'm sure you can recall. It was only a few days ago, but can you tell us a bit about where you went and what your weekend looked like for the big England game?
Yeah. So we flew out from Birmingham on Saturday morning. It took an hour and 40 minutes to go from the big queue outside Birmingham Airport
Yeah.
through to the bit where they check all of your toiletries and stuff like that in your bag and scan you.
Right.
So that was a nightmare, an utter nightmare.
Yeah.
And after that, I was probably just too knackered and ready to just get going onto the flight for a pre-airport point. So that was disappointing.
Yeah, well, the stuff about yeah. So just to maybe jump ahead a little, I've heard a lot about like the transport and everything like that being a
Mm,
bit underwhelming and it not really feeling like too well organized out in Germany. Obviously, you didn't go to the game, but you were around the area. What was all that like? Because I'm just starting to get the feeling that humans can't do shit anymore. Like all the
yeah,
things that we used to just have in the past are just like, oh no, it's all completely crap now. Like
I
going to an
know.
airport and queuing for 2 hours to get into a bigger queue, just insane.
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah, we went to so we just had a day in Berlin where we watched some of the games because it was just the easiest flight out there, and I just thought, well, at least we're somewhere. And it was actually the Berlin was where Croatia Spain was playing. So that
Yeah,
you saw loads of Croatian and Spain fans all mixing together. It was great. We then the next day went to Bochum, and that's about half an hour, 20 minutes away from Gelsenkirchen, which is where the game was.
yeah,
The options were, if we could have got a ticket, we'd have gone, no problem. But the other option was as a big fan park where England fans were told to go for in Gelsenkirchen, just outside at like a race course. I think I said it was a farm, but it was a race course. Getting still weird.
yeah,
Um, and apparently that when the England fans who were at the fan zone were asked to go to the game themselves and go on the trams that actually arrived were already full of people. So there was no way for them to get on there anyway.
yeah,
So we thankfully chose, and we were just probably lazy and didn't want the admin aggro. We just went, yeah, let's just find a sports bar and stay there and do that. So we found a sports bar thanks to the guys from Block 109 who I met, who were lovely as well, and had kind of organised the event. We just kind of came along and enjoyed the bar. And like, basically, there was one strip in Bochum that had about five sports bars on it.
mm,
So it was just like, yeah, this is perfect. We went to one of the bar for the Slovenia and Denmark game, watched the game there, and then went back to the one we were already at because it had the most England fans in there. So I just thought, yep, let's just at least be around a few other people we know. So yeah,
Was
it
there a
sounds like the admin side of the tournament has not gone well for people. There was like people that were staying at our hotel that got back at like 2:30 in the morning when the game
yeah,
finished at 11.
yeah. Well, as a common, match goer into I mean, common as in you go to a lot, not that
Mm,
you're a common pig.
commoner.
Yeah. Um, yeah, there's a lot of just being treated like shit, isn't there? Like
Yeah. Oh, yeah, totally.
you're viewed as a problem, and like the experience isn't always great. The football itself is amazing to watch. Any game really, as long as something happens,
Mm.
it's always great. But yeah, we were saying about how great it is to have the tournament in Germany. I'm very surprised that there seems to be a lot of focus on perhaps a lack of organisation structurally out there. But then I do think, yeah, the human race is starting to suffer at being able to do things.
I think that's difficult, isn't it? Because you, again, and maybe it's just stereotypical from the past of like, oh, Germany, well organized, blah, 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 all that.
Yeah,
And when you're out there, I just kept saying, this is a country that works. This
yeah.
is like, this is just something that is
So your
really.
experience was different to what?
I think my experience was different simply because we had already made the point of not doing almost like the standard stuff that a lot of fans who were out there to do, which was go to the game because we just wouldn't have no way of getting tickets. And the fan park itself, like it was absolutely pissing it down on one of the days as well. And it would have been just a race course with it absolutely pissing it down with so, yeah, so maybe some of the England fans that maybe we would have thought maybe we wouldn't want to be a part with
Yeah,
kind of like the ones who have travelled with no intention of going to the game or whatever, which again is still us, but I still like there's a certain way of looking at it at times. I just thought, you know what, probably don't want the aggro, and I probably like to just be able to sit down and enjoy a beer and get some food and have like, I don't know, a running sink and a toilet nearby, just something normal.
yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
just
Get
thought, yeah,
that.
that's fine. And then really we were traveling. I mean, we went on a train and you could have a sit down meal on the train with like the people next to us were having like because I think I was probably just a bit hungover and I didn't want a beer at that time of the day. But literally there was like table service for people. Like it was
Love
just
that.
this was just like a standard ice train in Germany. So like one of the longer ones. And it was like, yeah, this is the right way to do it, isn't it? So I didn't experience those things, but I know that and believe the people who absolutely did. Even your man who woke up in the stadium after the game as well.
Yeah, yeah. I've heard about that. I've not seen it. I've only just heard about it. Don't know I've missed it. But I wanted to ask. We've spoke a lot about admin. Atmosphere, much like big square, big England fan action, or pockets of sing-alongs, or what was that?
Yeah.
What was that side of it like?
For us, it was more the pockets because we'd stayed in Bochum, and again, that was kind of more by accident. Of the hotel I booked was just in Bochum, which is again a little bit outside of Gelsenkirchen, and you kind of saw that apparently in Gelsenkirchen you weren't able to really stand in like joint places in squares and drink, so it was kind of like you had to go to bars and things like that. Which again,
Yeah,
I'm not really against. But then you also had like the things just before the game of like hearing about crowd trouble and stuff like that that was
yeah,
in Gelsenkirchen, which actually turns out had nothing to do with England fans. It was allegedly Serbian and Albanian fans brawling, or fans or
right.
hooligans or whatever you want to say. So it was kind of seen as, oh, and I don't think there was any arrests either. I think there was one person who's come home with something that happened to them, possibly in terms of an arrest. But that's
Right.
literally it out of like every England fan that's gone over there, which I think is an improvement.
Yes. Well, it all sounds like a good old time was had, and maybe you'll get swayed into going back out there when we get to the final. Maybe I'll come with you. Maybe not, though.
Yeah.
We'll see. Should we talk about the football from an England perspective?
Yes.
Yes.
Let's
Okay.
do that.
After months and months and months of speculation, and maybe even years of speculation, because I feel like talking about the lineup for the next tournament starts as soon as the previous one ends.
Mm.
So this is what we got: the lineup: Pickford in goal, back four, Kyle Walker, John Stones, Mark Gahey, and Kieran Trippier. Declan Rice and Trent Alexander-Arnold ahead of them, with Saka, Bellingham, and Foden ahead of them, and ahead of them, and them, it's Harry Kane. I think people expected this, and yeah, I mean, no huge shocks, but I think maybe compared to where we would have been at the end of the last World Cup, a few things you probably wouldn't have expected. I don't think anybody would have picked Trent to play midfield then. Maybe they would have thought Bellingham would have still been playing as a number 8 or a 6, maybe, and Foden out on the left. So there's a lot to talk about, but I just wondered, with regards to that lineup, what were your thoughts when you saw it?
Yeah, I think it had been almost leaked or like told to the press that was pretty much what was going to happen in that lineup, that Alexander Arnold will take that midfield spot, and the rest of it is just like who was available and who was the preferred choice now with the players who were there. I was fine with it. I thought with Serbia probably were going to sit back and soak up the pressure. Alexander Arnold would help him pick the defense. He didn't really have too much to do in terms of that. Because when England did score, it was early enough.
Yeah.
I don't think it was early enough for lift off for England
No, it
quite.
wasn't. No.
It was, I'd say that's first 5 minutes, but it was
Yeah.
early enough to kind of calm the nerves and set the performance up. So yeah, I thought he got the lineup right personally. Whether he's right, that's right for the next game. I think he's very much kind of like the team. He won't change his tactics loads for each team, but he will probably have game plans that will involve different players, I'd say.
We can come on to the next game in a little bit, but let's talk about kind of the opening 20 minutes when I thought England looked really fluid. You couldn't really tell where anyone was playing. And it felt
Mm,
like he was like the man like starting off everything. He seemed to have a lot of the ball and then get it to the midfield, but Foden would be in the middle or on the right. Trent would be like higher up than Bellingham. Kane was somewhere, top of the 20. But I was like,
Game
oh,
was there.
is this what we're doing then this tournament? We're going completely like insanely cool, like
Mm,
is Gareth now revolutionary? And then Bellingham obviously got the goal after 13 minutes. A absolutely glorious, glorious header. I loved it. I love
yeah.
watching that goal. It's just like proper charge into the box. Somebody on the commentary was saying he took a risk going for it, but he knew what the rewards were, and that's great to see.
Yeah,
Great to
yeah,
see.
I thought it was a great run by Bellingham, kind of anticipating what was going to happen. Obviously, there's a deflection on the cross from Saka, but Bellingham makes that goal because he makes the run so well. And yeah, England were flying really early on and seemed to be full of loads of confidence. And they had a chance. They should have made it 2-0 really when they broke, and Kyle Walker had the chance to, and he kind of just made the wrong. Pretty much any other ball he'd have made or would have played, that would have been a goal that resulted from it. But yeah,
Yeah.
it just didn't seem to work. And then after that, England did kind of lose a bit of the momentum and the momentum in the team and looked a bit more disjointed. But for that first period of time, let's say Arnold was like popping up on the right a lot more than like he more does for club, really, when he's playing at right back. It was almost like a false right back England were playing.
Yeah, definitely. And like you say, it was a great start that, let's be fair, did kind of fade. It kind of faded towards the back end of the first half, but you can understand that. And then second half was it went different to what I think most of us would have expected. I think at half time, Harry Kane had two touches. One was a head on and one was like a pass.
Mm.
Um, I thought he improved in the second half actually, and was doing just a lot of just the hard, not hard work, but like the shit work.
Yeah.
He was just like, oh God, I'll just let him fell me. Like, he knew he wasn't really going to be getting. He
Down
had a
I
chance,
go.
obviously, but England did kind of hold on. Now there were a lot. Well, there were some positives, and there were some negatives that came from the game, and I think, yeah, I don't. Let's talk about that on an individual level then, because obviously you've got Bellingham who impressed. I think that's fair to
Mm.
say. Although I've started to see what I think might be the start of a backlash towards Bellingham. Do you know
Oh,
when he was like just on the edge of the box from like a crossing position, and he tried to take on his man like four times? He just went left, then right, then left, then right, then left, then
right.
right
Yeah.
again. And there was a lot of people sharing that, going, Phil Foden was just wide open in the position where he's banged in about 10 goals this season with his left, and this guy just wanted to just do it all himself. He wants to be the man, doesn't he? Which is great in my opinion.
Yeah.
But yeah, he came away from it with a lot of credit. Obviously, I thought Gay, he did really well. Saka had a good time in the first half, and then he's still coming back from an injury. I think Declan Rice was brilliant.
Hmm.
Jordan Pickford made a good save. Kyle Walker's Kyle Walker, and I think the rest can have some questions asked. I think maybe the best ones to discuss in a bit more detail would be those who might not maybe those who'd be most at risk of not making the starting lineup for the next game, and I would say that would be Trent and Foden.
Yeah, I think with Alexander Arnold, it was the fact that he is able to have those moments and how his passing works and all that. That's kind of what he's there for. It was just those moments of like that sloppy first touch and being maybe not running back as hard as he could. I mean, I think their first chance and really, I wouldn't say Serbia made loads of chances, and that's because England played well and limited them to that. But there's that touch that he takes right in front of the penalty area, which kind of just goes to the Serbian
Yeah,
player, and Mitrovic kind of flashes it wide. That's kind of like the danger when you do play him, and I just worry that in the big games, he's still probably going to do that, and even like a tight game against any team like we saw there, if you
I
keep
agree.
giving
Yeah,
teams like that chances, then that's the worry, and I don't know if he'll be in the team for the next game simply because they may want to be a bit more conservative and go, actually, a draw in the next game against Denmark wouldn't, be the worst thing in the world because they've drawn their game as well and they're probably seen as the other best team in the group. And then you've got that chance for the final game against Slovenia to kind of do what you did to Wales at the World Cup of England don't need to do much. They can just cruise through, probably just with a point or even just an easier 3 points.
yeah. With Trent, I think it's kind of like if he's there with the gambit or the remit, any sort of it, of being you're there to give us really kind of creative passes. I think that it looked like it had put a bit of pressure on him to always try those passes,
Yeah.
whereas others such as Mainu, Wharton, Gallagher, even wouldn't have that expectation of being the guy to play these insane passes that only really Trent is capable of, and can just help keep things a bit more normal.
Yeah, yeah.
But
You're always expecting that crazy ball from him, aren't you? Which is kind of like so that you look up straight away, but obviously the ball wasn't there as much because Serbia did sit back for a lot of the game and still didn't leave England that space a lot of the time, apart from some of the moments with Saka. And you have Foden isn't going to do that job on the left, is it? It's not like you've got Saka and Rashford, or probably be Gordon in this tournament to look to try and hit one of them, and Kane would drop deep, and that's kind of the way England have played under Southgate for a long time. With Foden there, you're kind of putting him in there because that's the only way you're going to fit him in the team, really, when you want to get the best out of Bellingham. And kind of moving on to Foden, I find it interesting that Cesc Fabregas was kind of the sensible one, obviously, which isn't a surprise really. When it was
yeah,
was it Ferdinand and Mika Richards were talking
yeah,
about it, I
yeah,
saw afterwards,
yeah.
and Mika Richards just like Solomon was just like, we need to find a way to get the best out of Phil Foden, and I'm just like, we've all been here before. How many times have we seen the Gerrard and Lampard, which is kind of what this is unfortunately like shaping up to be from
Maybe,
general fans and the media?
yeah. I'd like to just interject there and say something and it links in with all the reaction kind of stuff as well, which we'll talk in a bit more depth about. But um, I was in a group chat messaging at halftime, going, "Oh, good performance." A bit worried about Foden and maybe Trent could like be replaced with somebody else. And then I just kind of checked myself, and I was thinking, these are both good players. It's unrealistic to expect them to have the impact that you want in the first 45 minutes or 90 minutes of a tournament. So Phil Foden is good enough to deserve a second try out on that left, or even a third or fourth try if we get
Absolutely,
that
yeah.
far. And the same in a sort of goes for Trent, but he's playing out of position. But there's no need to like if we came out and Foden banged in 2 goals and Bellingham scored and Trent made 3 assists, like where do we go from there? I'm not saying
Yeah.
that wouldn't have been ideal, but like there's no reason to give up hope on these players. And I don't think Southgate will because of one game where we won.
Yeah.
And, they may not have had their best individual performances, but you don't need to change it every time something happens.
And it's also not like they're playing against a really rubbish team. I
Yeah.
know that Serbia didn't do well at the last World Cup, but that was an anomaly because they were seen to potentially be doing well, and they've done well for a lot at tournaments. They've been making tournaments a lot now. We looked at some of the team and thought actually that's a better team than maybe people are giving it credit for as well. And
Yeah.
I just think if Foden would have just got a goal, say Trent would have just crossed the ball, and it would have found Foden perfectly on the foot, and he went in. It was 2-0. and then they both got taken off in the game, would anybody be kind of talking about them?
No.
Goals and like those moments, obviously, because they're so important, they change the narrative around a team so much, and especially individuals. If Foden would have scored, it wouldn't have changed the fact that he was out of the game for a lot of it.
And I am aware that I mentioned those two names before then sticking up for them and saying we don't need to change everything. And there is also an element of you do have to be decisive in such a short space of time as a tournament. So you can't actually give somebody four chances like I was saying then. But yeah, I mean, come on, they're both still good players. They both might start, they both might be dropped. Any of those options are good by me because we've got a strong squad. Just a quick one on the game. I was reading an article on The Athletic earlier, and the title was Gareth Southgate has built his tournament success on narrow, low shot wins, and it works. Obviously, referencing his, his positive record in tournaments and kind of raising awareness of games like this are sort of the norm. And we've
Yeah.
spoke in the past about France being a good tournament side and having an element of conservatism despite having a lot of talent in the team. The win over Serbia on Sunday had a combined total of 11 shots, the fewest in any Euros game since 1980. And if you look on, well, the article, which I am now, they've got a list of the top 5 lowest shots in Euros games since 1980. And 3 of those are England from Euro. So the top one is England v Serbia, 11. Then Czech Republic v England from Euro 2020, 12. And then in 5th, England to Germany 0 at Euro 2020. So as much as people, think, oh, you just wanted them to come out and just smash it straight out to the blocks, quite an unreasonable expectation. And we won. And we did it in a way that was effective because, Serbia had maybe 1 or 2 chances, but so did we. Kane was, as we say, kind of out of the game, but he could have very easily had a goal.
Well, again, I think people have forgotten about that. He hit the bar with a really, really good save as well from the goalkeeper. And, these narrow wins have come in, certain tournaments. But you've also got to remember at the last World Cup, England won a game, was it 6-1?
Yeah, that was the first game.
Against Iran. They drew with the US and then they won the next 2 games by a 3-goal margin. So it's like, England can let the handbrake off or whatever you want to say, but England are just not used to winning games like the opening game at tournaments. You're just not.
So
this is what we've just, this has just become the norm now of you win your opening game, it sets it up, and you can just get through the group, which is something that England just had not done for so long pre-Southgate.
I had to wait 29 years until England won their opening game at the Euros.
Yeah.
In my lifetime, which was against Croatia last tournament. My son George had to wait 2 months. 2 months to 29 years, man. That is a long time. Even if I said like 10 years, then that would still be quite. God, that's a long time. But flipping hell.
Totally.
Let's have a little chat about the reaction. I usually want to we always end up talking about it anyway. Usually do just like to focus on the football or try to, but I think it's going to be important to just discuss how people react as we go through because it's interesting. So with your kind of finger on the pulse, how do you see, what do you think the general vibe and mood is in terms of the reaction to this result?
We're a country of giant babies.
Hey.
And it's just fucking insufferable at times where I always say we can't have nice things, can we? We can't have a football team who just wins. Well, we do have that, but no one's happy with it.
No.
And fine,
In fact,
it wasn't.
They're
It
so
wasn't.
unhappy.
Yeah, but it was like, and I guess I've been in England, I've been in Germany, so I've not seen a lot of the English stuff. I've heard bits of it, which has been, a relief to just avoid all that crap. But like I say, just people are just so over the top about these kind of things, and just because it wasn't Iran 6-1 or whatever it was, then fine.
Yeah.
You can't win every game 6-1. You can't always play this like big attacking football all the while. Teams are at this tournament because they're good. I know that it's been opened up recently in terms of like more teams have come and all that, but even these teams are still pretty good. And Serbia have got a lot behind them as well. It's the first game. Just chill out with all this kind of stuff as well. Especially when we said, "Oh well, he's got to change this. He's got to change this," and even the people we were watching the game with who were behind us, it's just that they're so happy and quick to jump on Southgate and to jump on the team and individual players. And from like the stuff of, oh, he could have changed this earlier, he could have done that. Fine, there's like levels, takes that you can have about it. To the point where there was a guy behind me at the airport the other day who was saying that Harry Kane is a waste of oxygen. I mean, wow. And
Yeah,
then also, and you could tell this guy had like got nothing going for himself. So he just got these bad opinions to get a conversation out of people. And
yeah.
thankfully, he wasn't talking to me, but he
It's
was just
like the
like,
the type of people who say Beatles are rubbish.
yeah. Actually, I didn't like them. I liked bloody Mott the Hoople or something. And he was like, so he said that Kane was a waste of oxygen, and then maybe he'll prove me wrong. Maybe he'll go score 25 goals. And I was like, what in general or this tournament? I don't think it's possible to score 25 goals in a tournament. And then he was like, I don't like Calamity Jane as well in goal, And he was just waiting for someone to laugh, and no one did, obviously, because it's not a phrase that anyone's ever said about Jordan Pickford.
we had
Calamity
David.
Jane.
We had David James, who was Calamity James, but
That's a
that was a
pun at
different
least.
time. Yeah,
That's at
God,
least a pun. It's not just here's an opinion I remember. I'm just going to put that on somebody else. And
all
it's
those
like,
calamities
what?
that he's done over the last 6 years.
But also, what did he do wrong yesterday on that game?
He was
What did he
good.
do wrong the other day? He did nothing. He made one save because he only had to make one save, and it was probably maybe just going over, but it may be hitting the bar. Like,
Yeah,
what do you want? And I guess maybe there's a bit of something unhelpful about the way people speak about Pickford in particular, because he's just a goalkeeper that shouts at his defense a lot. Because I think he's said previously it helps keep him focused on the game, and it keeps the players focused as well. Like if he was a massive prick and no one liked him, he probably wouldn't be in the team. But he's a
yeah,
very popular person in that side. So
yeah. I can't think of much else to add other than completely agreeing with you. It's just exhausting, and I feel like I'm going overboard with sticking up for Safegate because
yeah,
you just have to do it so often. Like, yeah, definitely like a minority opinion now. And it's exhausted, and it's not going to get okay. It could get better if the next manager comes in and wins back to back to back tournaments.
yeah,
Other than that, like a country like the Netherlands or Spain or even Germany would have loved to have had our last three tournaments. Not necessarily Germany's standard because they've got a history of winning, but on recent form, and that is all you can judge it off. Yeah, I think they were showing before the game. Safegate's like the second, no, third highest like amount of games managed for England, and I
mm,
think he's got the second highest win percentage behind Fabio Capello, who's got like 0.1% more. And it's like,
yeah.
yeah, but he had a lot less games. So yeah, the reaction's just insane. On a bit of a wider watch, you see Ten Hag had a dig. Eric Ten Hag got stuck in.
Something about saying about how he kind of plays a dangerous game with how quickly he'll make England compact. And I'm a bit like, I'm a fan of you, Eric, but it's a bit fucking rich, you like putting up other people for like what they weirdly do in games. So
Yeah, yeah, he's
yeah, I
going
thought
on a mad one.
I think maybe he's just like, because he knows he's not getting sacked in the next 2 months,
Yeah, yeah.
he's just properly just gone like, fuck it, I'm just saying what I want now.
That's the manager, and then you've got like there's been so many Phil Foden memes I've seen, and then you get the obvious. We've got the Prem's like leading goals and assists maker just sat on the bench, didn't even get a minute, and it's just like, yeah, he will get a minute though when the time is right. And what exactly did he need to contribute to that game the other day?
That
We,
game
were-
was not
we,
screaming out for Ollie Watkins to come on, like at all, anything like.
yeah,
You can say maybe there's other areas where Gallagher coming on maybe a bit too late, and should you have brought Gallagher on rather than someone who could keep the ball more, like a Wharton or a Mainu or something like
yeah.
that?
I was
Like, is that
actually
not that? There's not that rather than what he did. I was surprised he brought Jared Bowen on, but I thought he was fine when he
well,
came
yeah, I
on.
was I
But
was actually talking about Cole Palmer, and it was
well, there you go, and
the
that
man in the
shows
meme.
that shows the squad that
Yeah,
England have, and it's just like it depends who you support or who you do like or who you don't like, and club biases and all that for who you go should be playing my favourite, and it's always been like that for England. I'm not saying this is anything new, but it feels more draining the fact that England have had a good team for so long, and we talk about France so much because they're clearly, to me, they feel like an uncrowned world champion
mm.
in terms of it's mad that they didn't win that final in the end. But
Yeah,
when you
yeah.
look at like this generation of France, they've won one tournament
Yeah.
In since Deschamps has been there, which is 2012, they've won one tournament.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, it's because and that's why people are so big on this, like the Mbappe thing we mentioned about because he's never scored at a Euros. This generation hasn't been actually around that long, but because we kind of put it back towards the World Cup in 2018, they obviously went out in the knockouts against the Swiss. They got to the World Cup final last time, and it's just assumed that they're going to get to the final this time as well, or at
Yeah.
least the semis. But anything can happen where they could throw away a game. Austria looked good the other night, and it should give teams a hope that actually, if they do get at France and around them, they're not always going to be able to get out of it, and teams can hurt France. And I think that it was shown last night that that's possible. So when you look at that back to England, who else has really had that success? England were probably a penalty kick. Well, they were literally like a couple of penalty kicks away from having won the same amount of trophies as this generation of France.
Yeah. Yeah. And just quickly back on the players there, away from the reaction, I guess, but I thought Bowen and Gallagher did really well when they came on,
Yeah, fine,
especially
absolutely
Gallagher, in,
fine.
in my
Yeah,
opinion. So, but you're never going to get that's not going to be like retweet. Nobody's going to go, we should have been playing Gallagher from the start. I just don't get it. But
yeah.
anyway, let's look ahead. Let's try and get some positivity. I'm going to try and get this podcast out on Tuesday evening, but if there's any chance that it goes out on Wednesday, we'll be playing Denmark tomorrow. Either way, that is Thursday. We're playing Denmark on Thursday,
Thursday.
5 p.m. They drew 1-1 with Slovenia ahead of England's game against Serbia. A really good result for England, that, and kind of changes the attitude of me in terms of um, stress levels for the rest of the group, including this game. Um, yeah, do you predict? So we have spoken a lot about the team and what have you, and unfair criticism. Do you predict any changes in the lineup?
I think he may change Arnold for someone. I think that's just maybe the idea. I don't know what Denmark are going to do in terms of so I didn't think they were that impressive. Slovenia actually played really well against them, and I
Yeah.
thought they even could have won it in the end over Denmark. So Denmark will know they need to go out there and win. So maybe they'll feel like they need to be on England, and if they're putting pressure on England, I wouldn't want that to be Alexander Arnold starting.
No, no.
I would want. But then you go back to the issue of what has been the thing of who is that person to play next to Rice and behind Bellingham. It's going to be a Gallagher or a Mainu, from what I can tell. Really, if it is Arnold who goes out, I can't see it being Wharton just because he's just so inexperienced at a lot of the level and things like that too. So wouldn't surprise me maybe if it was Gallagher. England do sit off a bit more and look to break more because Denmark have to come out.
Luke Shaw.
I don't know what his fitness status is. Maybe if he can play in the last game, maybe that will then be the case for it. Maybe he'll be able to get off the bench in this one, but I think it's still going to be mostly that team with one change, especially with. I mean, you look at like I know you mentioned it. Mark Gay really impressed me, and it was interesting that actually it was John Stones doing the Harry Maguire role
Yeah.
of when something was high in the air, Stones would go and deal with it, and it was actually Mark Gay who was like cleaning up around them and winning the tackles and playing it around. So it's interesting. Stones has taken that because maybe they see that Gay is not amazing in the air, or he's definitely like shorter than Stones. So it's
Mhm.
interesting that like the Maguire mantle has not been taken up by Gay; it's now on Stones.
Do we think Foden will? I mean, I definitely think if he brings Shaw in and replaces Trent, I don't think he's going to make three changes. I wouldn't be
No,
surprised if he just made one in the midfield. I wouldn't be surprised if he made none. So, do we both think Foden will start again?
I think
I,
so.
I
Yeah, and I
personally
think
think
when
he's
you've
too good to just drop after one ineffective performance, even on the left. When I know everyone says he's got to play through the middle, he's good. He's a very good player, and all it takes is him to get the right chance at the right time, and you really would back him to finish and or make a difference on the game from any
he,
position.
he played on the left for England at the last tournament, and I think he get 2 goals in that tournament, at least one, or maybe it was Saka who scored against Senegal, but he played on the left and played well against Senegal. So it's just a
Mm,
case of, he's done it before. It's just the fact that for some reason England weren't able to get him in the game as much. And that's probably down as much down to him as down to anybody else.
yeah.
And again, he's just still a fucking brilliant
I
footballer.
was going to say he's not,
We just need to
and
chill out.
I like Anthony Gordon, and I would not be upset. I wouldn't be going bloody hell if he started, but it's worth letting Foden try and find his feet on that role because he can bring so much more than Anthony Gordon. He can bring so much more than God, so many players from England's entire history in my lifetime, just
Yeah.
from watching him in the Prem for Man City. He is an exceptional, like, English footballer who maybe just hasn't done it yet for England, but also he's very much in the right sweet spot to be able to do it right now. And I
And
don't
he's
want to
still
throw that
got
away after one game.
no, and he's still got the difficulty of still having a guy who isn't really who has played left back and he's comfortable enough there, but he's hardly was making the overlapping runs, was he?
No, no.
In Trippier. So he's got a different role as well until maybe when Shaw comes back into the team. And you saw that that right hand side was probably going to be the more prominent for England with the Walker if Arnold plays. And then you've also obviously got Saka there as well. Maybe there's a role for Foden of playing more inside alongside Trippier and kind of making that left side, not have as much width on it. So maybe that's what they'll try and do. But like we said, we've said it a million times now already. He's a very good player. I'm sure he'll be fine. And if not, he'll be out of the team and a player who can do a different role for England will come in and maybe Foden will find himself in a different part of the team. But there's no reason to be going over the top about it after one game.
No, I agree. What would you consider a success from this game then? Because I think before the group, we would have definitely said this is the biggie. This
Mm.
is like crucial for the whole tournament. I feel like it maybe is less crucial for the tournament, less of a biggie now, but that doesn't mean we can take it lightly. Would you be happy with um holding it down to try and get a draw or a narrow win? Or do you think because the first game wasn't super impressive, and that's I think that's fair to say,
Hmm.
even though I don't think it was a disaster. Do you think now is the time to step up because it's game two?
I think so. Yeah, I think it's time to step up. It's time to have a bit more of a solid performance. However, I would definitely snatch your hand off now for a 0-0.
Would you
Just
really?
be yeah, just because it's the fact of if England lose this game, it's kind of they're now below Denmark after that
Mhm.
as well, and I don't think England can lose this game if they want to still have that easier run through the tournament as well. So I'd take your draw. I'd take another few days of everyone whinging, and then hopefully a win against Slovenia just sends England through as winners because that's what they're going to be looking at now. And we always, the second game we've seen at the last two tournaments has been dog shit anyway. So let's just see how that goes.
You're looking for like a neutral there, really. As in,
Yeah.
in my head, I was thinking then while you were talking, I would take a draw, but maybe 2-2. But then you imagine how much people going on our defense after that game. 2-2,
know.
just so you could say Foden's got a goal and Kane's got off the mark, something like a couple of positives to take away. But right now, you would take a neutralized, we're exactly where nothing happens. Would you take Algeria
Oh,
2010 right now? Would you take that 0-0?
don't know if I can ever take that again. I think maybe, and again, it's not the Scotland and the US game, but maybe a game where England just play well and they don't take their chances. You'd rather that in terms of the draw, but you're asking what type of draw do we want? Isn't it
Yeah,
really
yeah, yeah.
like it's just you're really getting into the nitty gritty of it now. I think just get through the game, don't lose it, and you set yourself up for the rest of the tournament, really. And then that's where your tournament can start by then kind of saying to the players, go out and prove yourself, go out and win against Slovenia, and then you are ready then for the knockouts, which is where hopefully England's tournament really starts.
Love that. Love that. Score predictions then we may as well, and a bit of a chat maybe as to what comes after this game in terms of yeah. Well, it's quite obvious what it's in terms of, isn't it? It's in terms of English tournament. I'm going to predict head or heart. I got a feeling Denmark are going to step up. I've got.
Okay.
I'm not like negative Nancy. Like I predicted 1-0 in the first game. I'm not sure if I did it on this pod, but there's texts in other
Evidence.
chats of 1-0. Just got a feeling it might be a bit of a painful day. I can just see Rasmus Højlund just celebrating. I'm gonna go 2-1 to Denmark. Bit of pain,
Wow.
a bit of pain, a bit of pain.
Wow.
Awful after everything we've said.
That you've just said. You've
But you
you
can't.
you reverted
I can't be
to the
Mark
negative
Lawrenson.
Englishman.
Can't be Mark Lawrence and predicting what was it, Liverpool would go unbeaten for 15 years in the Premier League every week. Sometimes your team will lose and you'll have to go for a bit of a struggle. What's your prediction, Nick?
I'll just go with a 1-1. a gentleman's 1-1. Get
Yeah.
out of there. Good performance from England. Again, I know Serbia were probably better than some people thought, but I thought we both said that Serbia, and when we said that the group was harder than people thought, we meant Denmark and Serbia. And as disappointing as Denmark were against Slovenia, you feel like, okay, they've really got to go for it. And maybe that'll play into England's hands. Maybe that will actually upset England in terms of their rhythm. But I could see a draw and then just take it, move on, never speak of it again, like the USA game, like the Scotland game. And like I say,
So
finish it the next one.
let's say it is a draw and yeah, finishing it the next one. What I'm trying to think of, obviously it depends on the result between Serbia and Slovenia. So say, for example, then that Slovenia beats Serbia, and then you've got England on 4, Denmark on 2, Serbia on none, and Slovenia on 4, and England versus. I mean, how would you approach a game like that?
I think you've just still got to take your chance of you look at the Slovenia team and maybe and they were obviously really good against Denmark, but you are then just saying, come on, you go out there to win the game to get yourself in the next round, and that's it really. I think that's just the way it has to go for England.
And there's so much to happen already, obviously, but if we get ourselves into a good position, narrow win against Denmark, then you're basically through.
Yeah.
Do you play Ollie Watkins, Adam Wharton, Lewis Dunk, or do you try and let the team play themselves?
I think maybe you mix it up. Maybe you say you give to Bellingham and Saka a game off. You give maybe even do it with your Rice if you're that worried about him not being fit, and maybe you do like you mix and match the team. But the players who are going to be good to go and continue to be good, like your Stones, Pickford, Walker, Gehi, because he's only just come into the side. A couple of players like that, Kane will not want to miss a chance of bagging a goal, as he was just determined to never lose that England record again.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think he'd be a case of you change a few pieces. You don't go Roy Hodgson and make bloody 8 changes or whatever he did for that game.
You wouldn't.
No, I just don't think so. I think it upsets the rhythm. I think that's what the problem was with that Hodgson team as well. They could have. Well, one of them, but that one particular at that Euros, he changed a lot of players, and it was really mix and match because no one knew what they were kind of doing. At least if you pick almost the best team you can with a couple of changes, that's the sensible thing to do about it, and it keeps everyone ticking over. The ones you maybe don't start, you bring on in that game because you can make a million substitutes these days.
True. Well, the time for talking is over. We'll, I'm sure, have very different things to say after the game is actually played. But come on, England, and if you're going to choose one of our predictions, go with the gentleman's 1-1. If you can influence the game that much before it kicks off, and just decide what score you want. What a sign off! I'll see you next time.
You may be a stranger, that's what time can do. Baby, you mean everything to me. Darling, there's no danger with all